It's hard when you're younger. There's a lot of peer pressure that you feel, you know. You don't want to have people say, oh, well, you're a wuss because you won't go out and do this with me, or you won't go out and do that. And I was one of those kids who was really into, believing, okay, well, if he says that I'm a wuss, then maybe I am. So I have to do this to prove myself to him. Hi, my name's Sean, and when I was 15 years old, I set my high school on fire. How could I have done this? Did I actually do this? Why did I actually do this? And I really had no idea. Everybody has a friend that they want to look up to. Mine was a poor choice, and he was just one of those kids who liked to break things or destroy things or just get into trouble. And eventually we started setting things on fire. We started with little pieces of paper, then we moved on to other things, and we got caught. And my parents grounded me for a long time. And I had stopped setting fires, and I was not allowed to see my friend anymore. So when I first got into the high school, I would hang out with these friends of mine, and we just started joking around about, if we didn't have to go to school, it would be so much cooler. So we decided, like, as a joke, we would just screw around about setting the high school on fire, burning it down, and not having to deal with high school anymore. Well, for me, it was a little bit more serious than that because I had a lot more problems in high school. What started as a joke became more of a serious idea in my head because of all the problems I had been going through. And I came to the conclusion that, well, if I get rid of my school, then I won't have any more problems, and then I won't having to deal with, people picking on me or me having to worry about my grades or my homework or any of that. And then it just became a good idea to me. So I went to my high school and I decided to break in and set it on fire. And my idea had turned into a reality, hoping that I would solve all the problems that I was having.
There are many reasons why children set fires. It can be because they're angry about something. It can be in reaction to big things that are going on in their life, whether parents are separating, whether they've lost someone in their family. It can be because of bullying or teasing or things that are going on in school. People may be afraid of asking for help because they don't see that there is a problem. They just think it's a phase that a child is going through that they will outgrow, and to seek help for the fire setting or misuse of fire is just to overreact or emphasize what was going on. But the point would be that it is such a dangerous behavior, we can't let it go. Every time a child plays with fire, the risk of somebody getting hurt or losing your house or your belongings is so high. And the point of seeking help and going through a fire safety education program is to give kids better ways to deal with these issues, to give them tools so that instead of lighting a fire because they're angry, they can learn that instead they need to go run or go pound a punch bag or let those feelings out in another way that's not so dangerous.
Kids need to understand that when they commit that crime of arson, there's nothing that they can do to take that back. I've been on many investigations where we've gone out, and once that fire starts, you can't stop it. The result from that fire could be the injury to that kid, or it could be the injury to somebody else. Even death could result from that fire. And that's something that you can never take away.
I went home and I started watching the news the next morning, and they were showing all the vandalism and all the destruction that I had done. And I sat there like, how could I have done this?
Setting a fire in a school can be more than just a disruption to the educational environment.
There's consequences that people don't foresee when they think, well, I'm only setting a fire. The person setting the fire doesn't intend to kill anybody. They don't intend to hurt anybody. But the fact of the matter is they've committed a felony, and during the course of committing that felony, someone dies. They're going to be guilty of a much more serious crime.
Arson is a serious crime. It's classified with other felonies, such as murder, rape, and assault and battery. To simply define arson is the unlawful setting of a fire or intentional setting of fire for an improper use.
Arson is one of the more serious crimes that we have, and even though a person is a juvenile, they could be convicted as an adult for that crime, and potentially, if the crime was serious enough, they could in fact go to prison.
When I found out a couple of days later that the students were going to be moved to another location, I had the same thought and same idea again that, okay, if I get rid of my high school, I can get rid of my problems and I won't have to deal with anything again. So I went to this other school, and when I had gotten there, I had realized how wrong I was and how wrong what I had done was. And when I was getting ready to leave, the police officer had pulled up behind me, and I decided that, I knew that I needed to do the right thing. So I got out of the car and I walked over to the police officer and told him that I was the one who set the high school on fire. Then I was arrested and I was taken to the police station where I was held in the holding cell. And my mother had come in, and I will never, for the rest of my life, forget the look that she had on her face when she came in. There were just tears and so many emotions. She was angry, she was sad, and confused. So when my mother had gotten to the holding cell that I was in, I felt like, okay, well, my mom was here. Maybe she'll be able to help me. She'll be able to do something for me. And she really couldn't. There's nothing that my parents could do for me at that point. Once I had made those decisions, I was on my own. On my own. On my own. That was only the beginning of the problems that I had brought upon myself. After that, I was moved to Maxie Boys Detention School, which is a juvenile detention, where you have cells that are just tiny. You have cement beds and toilets that are a foot away from your bed with no sink, and a door with a window that's only like 6 inches wide, that they can come in, they can look at you whenever they want, and it's not a comfortable place to be. While you're there, you wake up at 6 in the morning and you go to bed at 8 at night. Now, there aren't many people who, get to be 15, 16 who want to go to bed at 8 o'clock, especially in the summer when the sun's still out. It's not a fun place to be. You get fences that are 30 feet high. A lot of the fun things that you like to do, you can't do anymore.
As in the situation with Sean, he was 15 years old. He wound up being locked up for, I think, 3 years or longer. So he goes in as a 15-year-old and then suddenly comes out as an 18-year-old. If you're sentenced as an adult, you could go in as a 15-year-old and come out as a 25 or 30-year-old man or woman. And all those years, all those carefree years of doing the fun things that teenagers like to do, going to dances, going to ball games, having fun after school, hanging out with your friends, kind of doing what you want, those things are going to be gone.
Understand the consequences before you commit that act, because once you do, it's all over. There's nothing you can do to go back in time to change it. And those consequences, they're there for the rest of your life. Once they light that fire, all of the different chain of events that happen after that, they have no control over.
If you start a fire, what's going to happen is the fire department is going to respond, and their obligation is going to put out the fire. Fireman arrives on the scene. He goes in there, let's say he's in fighting the fire, and the roof collapses and the firefighter is killed. So now we've changed from not only have you committed an arson, but now you're responsible for first-degree murder. If someone dies at that fire scene, such as a firefighter, now you're talking first-degree murder.
And that's something that you can never go back in time, you can never take away.
It started with the media. I was on newspaper covers and radio. They were talking about me on TV, and it gave my family a horrible reputation. And my parents were well known and well liked in the community up until that point. And when I did that, that hurt their stance in the community. You know, they had the son who set the school on fire, you know, or my sister had the brother who tried to destroy her high school.
Arson is a very serious crime, and it will get you a lot of negative attention. You could wind up being on the front page of your local paper, and everyone in the community would then identify you as someone who commits arson. And based on that, when other crimes are committed of arson in the community, you may be subject to being someone that the police would look at more closely than somebody else.
And because I was expelled from my high school, I wanted to go back to another one. And so I went into another public school where someone else had set fires. And because of the reputation that I have as being a juvenile fire setter, they kicked me out just because they couldn't take the chance that it was me. Even though that someone could say that's where I was, I didn't do it, they were with me, it doesn't matter. When you do something like that, you get a reputation, you get a label. And I wasn't able to go to my prom or my homecoming or football games or my graduation. I couldn't even graduate. I had to get a GED. So it held me up in a lot of aspects of my life.
Imagine this. You're 15 years old and you've had the normal 15-year-old's experience and you commit an arson, they discover you, they arrest you, they convict you, and you go off to jail or prison or to a juvenile detention facility. And you're in there for 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 years, and you come out. You're going to come out and all your friends are going to be gone. And just think in terms of all the technology, for example, that has happened there, you know, cell phones, texting, you're not going to know how to do any of that stuff. I mean, it's going to be a foreign language to you. You wouldn't have learned any of that stuff that all your friends were learning and doing every day. And you're going to come out and you're not going to have any skills, and you're going to have to go out and try to find a job because, you know, now you're too old to go back to your old high school or your old junior high school. You might be able to do work and get your GED, but you'll be with other adults who didn't get their degree when they thought they were going to get it. And then after you do get your degree, you're going to have to go out and talk to an employer, and you're going to fill out the employment application and say, yes, I got my GED, and they're going to say, well, what have you been doing for the last 3 years? You know, there's nothing, no work history on here, no school history. Well, the last 5 years or the last 10 years, what have you been doing? Well, I've been in prison. And you can imagine as an employer sitting there and hears that you've been in prison for doing what? Committing an arson. You know, an arson where you caused great damage, you put people's lives at risk, and you want me to hire you now? What can you tell an employer at that point about why they should take a risk on you and hire you at that point when you have no skills, you have no life experience in the way the world works now, and you have been guilty of committing a very serious and dangerous crime?
Me starting this fire and destroying my high school had put so much strain on my family. With all the court hearings we had to go through, the publicity, the damage costs, everything had just stressed my family out so much. Right now I still have a really hard time talking to any of my siblings. My mom and I are the only one who talk out of a family of 6 on a regular basis. Other than that, we only talk when I have to the others. And it really hurts when you can't talk to your brother or sister or your dad because you screwed up one time, and you never really think about how much that one time, how much damage that can inflict on everything in your life. To this day, we still have to go over court costs and how much fire had actually cost us.
In Sean's case, the damage to the Howell schools was in excess of $700,000, almost $750,000 that his parents are responsible for. And it isn't just once Sean gets off probation that he's no longer, either he or his parents are no longer responsible for that money, that they're responsible for paying that debt until it is paid.
In addition to all these things we talked about as far as legal consequences, money or financial consequences, social or reputation consequences, and also what happens to your future, there's also the piece about medical consequences. And what I mean by that is playing with fire is very dangerous. You can get hurt, people near you can get hurt, people that you aren't intending to get hurt can be hurt by this. And to suffer a burn injury is just horrendous. It's one of the worst possible things that a person has to deal with.
I never really thought about how much one match could cost me, or how much damage one match could do, until I actually saw the outcome of this.
If Sean was lucky enough to be in your seat today, he may have learned all of the different consequences and understood what could have happened to him had he set a fire. That may have had a completely different result on his life today. He still has to deal with a lot of the negative consequences that have come from that fire.
You all are lucky. You now have a lot of information and knowledge about fire setting and misuse of fire that Sean did not have. The good thing about this is that regardless of what you've done in the past or what has happened, you can move forward and change. You have the choice to make good decisions and to do well with your life.
I've already made the poor choice to commit arson, and I have to deal with it for the rest of my life. My family has to deal with it for the rest of their life. Take what you learned today, make the right decisions, and don't let this happen to you.